Hello, my name is Rebecca Guerrero, and I am an English Language Arts facilitator at the Young Women's STEAM Research and Preparatory Academy in El Paso, Texas. We're the first fully new tech, single gender school in the nation. And this project I'm going to be talking about today is called Stories of Persistence. It's a project that I carried out with my 7th and 8th grade students this year. So in this project, students took on the role of children's book authors. Their job was to write a children's book that centered around the theme of persistence or themes surrounding persistence to be actually printed and donated to the El Paso Children's Hospital. And in this project, students had to develop a deep knowledge of English language arts standards, such as theme, figurative language, plot development, character qualities, author's purpose, audience targeting, and how graphical elements work with text to create a message in the book. So there was a very strong focus on standards. This project also developed learning outcomes because students were creating a product that would make its way into the real world and be given to children suffering from diseases. They knew that their product was to be a source of comfort and encouragement for children, and this knowledge really increased their agency. And it also increased the accuracy of their written communication because they tried really hard on their revisions and editing. And their display of knowledge and thinking was very high because they wanted these to be stories that were going to be meaningful and engaging and impactful for the children. When this project was first launched, students identified the need to analyze existing works of fiction in order to be able to write one themselves. So we analyzed short stories such as Langston Hughes' One Friday Morning and The Scholarship Jacket by Marta Salinas. And these stories were not only a good way to evaluate plot and characterization, but they also helped us to work with themes about persistence. Students also identified that while these stories talked about persistence on a very personal level, we also needed to talk about what it meant to be persistent on a societal level. So we read the book Hidden Human Computers about the persistence of women of color working for NASA in the segregated 1950s and 60s. And they completed a reading log, which not only asked them to assess the informational text nature of the novel, but encouraged them to reflect on experiences of the real women that were portrayed in the text. And what was cool was after reading the book, students were able to actually meet with its author, Duchess Harris. She's actually the granddaughter of one of the women portrayed in the book. So students were able to hear firsthand about her grandmother's persistence and about her current projects, which all revolve around gender and race equality. And throughout the process, the girls were able to begin drafting and story mapping their own books about persistence using an online tool called Storybird.com, in which they designed stories around catalogs of artwork uploaded by professional artists. So in order to learn more about the process of writing, drafting, and ultimately publishing a book, students were able to take a field trip to the local publishing agency called Cinco Puntos Press. Cinco Puntos Press is a company that focuses on publishing children's books and novels relevant to the border community and the experiences of people primarily of this region. Students were able to generate questions about the publishing process and then ask professionals in the community. They learned about the publishing process from the stages of writing and editing and illustrating and proofing, printing and marketing. And they were able to see examples of printed manuscripts that were illustrated, which helped them to learn about the relationships between text and images. And they were able to actually choose a book from the company to take home as a gift, and they later completed book reviews on their chosen novels. So they got to work with the owners of the company themselves, who invited them into the store and showed them kind of what the whole process is like and how they take a book from an idea all the way into a printed copy that's ready to be distributed globally. Throughout the writing process, assignments were scaffolded. Students first worked analyzing fictional stories to understand plot structure and character traits, and then they created story maps, engaged in critical friends activities, and teacher conferences, and finally created multiple drafts of their own stories, always knowing that their books were actually intended for a real audience. And one of the best unforeseen elements of this project was its impact on English language learners. So when I contacted the Children's Hospital to assess their needs from these books, they told me that what they were in the most desperate need of was books in Spanish. So I presented this problem to my students, and offered an opportunity to do a dual language version for extra credit. And the Spanish speakers in my class quickly lit up at the opportunity to be translation experts. And they took on leadership roles that they did not usually gravitate towards. So the end products ended up being primarily dual language books. I didn't have very many groups who opted out of that option. So we had a lot of dual language kids books to be donated to the hospital. When the books were ready, they were taken to the EPISD print shop and made into physical copies. Before donating them to the hospital, there was one more step in the process, though. So students were assessed. So even though they were assessed on standards throughout the process, their biggest assessment came when students read their original storybooks to a local elementary school and actually coached the young students through performing Critical Friends. So students were able to see the impact of the plot lines and character developments on an inherently critical audience, which was little kids. And they saw where they had succeeded in communicating their message and also where their intention had not translated the way they intended. So the young students from kindergarten to fourth grade, which were assigned to each group based on the age level they identified for their books, they quickly took to Critical Friends and they provided really good feedback on the books. I think this was a successful project because students really did take ownership of it. They were excited to create something that would have a positive community impact and to see the reactions their work had the power to evoke in others. The learning of state standards felt natural because it was a requirement in order to create a quality product. If students were unable to understand plot or characterization, the story would suffer and they would feel dissatisfied with the effect their book had on their classmates. And this motivated them to make the revisions that they needed. And because we used online tools, the end product looked professional and students were really proud to send it into the world. Next time, in order to make the project involve cross-curricular collaboration, I would involve art classes. This time they chose from portfolios that came from the online tool Storybird.com, but next time perhaps art students could create the portfolios that the writers would choose from. Over the course of the project, I learned that students always display greater motivation and willingness to revise their work when they know it'll be seen by people out in the community. So once students fully grasped that they were sending a product out into the world, they displayed a sense of urgency and organization that they don't always display for other assignments. So what I learned over the course of this project is that the more authentic you can make it to the community, the better the end product is going to be. Thank you so much for your time.